Hello and welcome to Wake Up Laughing and our section on humor and transformation. We have a very wonderful and unusual and international guest today, Alex Sternick, who has a Bachelor of Science in Clinical Nutrition, is an expert and internationally recognized practitioner of the art of nonsense and laughter therapy. He's the man behind the laughter clubs in Israel. He began his laughter journey in India in 2003, where he worked with terminally ill patients. He then practiced in Ethiopia as a laughter therapist in Mother's Mission and a nutritionist with Save the Children USA. These experiences inspired him to bring laughter yoga to Israel, and in 2004, he started the first laughter yoga club in Jerusalem and brought leading experts to the country, including Dr. Kataria and World Laughter Master Balaku Girma, to run workshops. Alex has also worked with Israelis and Arabs in an attempt to bring these diverse groups together through laughter and nonsense. Well, when sense doesn't work, nonsense is definitely going to work. In addition to his impact in his native country of Israel, Alex has traveled all over the world to run professional certified training workshops. He has trained professionals in the technique in Germany, Austria, Finland, the UK, Slovenia, and other countries. He has also appeared in local media channels in those countries. He is currently the Gibberish professor. I've never been to Gibber, but he'll tell me all about it. In the Applied Positive Psychology program at Bucks New University in the UK. So this is really very interesting. Alex Sternick, welcome.
Welcome, Swami. Happy to be with you now, and I'm happy to answer the questions.
Good, very good. Well, I like your interspersion of nonsense that makes as much sense as many of the sense we've been subjected to these days. Let's talk a little bit about nonsense. How can nonsense make sense and be used for a tool as a tool for transformation?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. Because, you know, the big problem of people in the universe that they are lacking their purpose for living and meaningful life. People are not happy today because they don't know what is their purpose in life, and then they follow the purpose of others, or they try always to please others, or they try to satisfy others. The next thing that also contributes to the fact that people don't see the sense in their life, this is because their life is full of tsunamis. They pass through September 11th and surprises of life from time to time, and it blocks them from being happy, from seeing their inner smile and inner happiness. So they are so condemned by the circumstances of life. Now, this was some introduction to what happens. And in order to resolve it, first of all, we should agree that life is an absurd. We should see that life is like a big giggle. It's like there is a proverb that says that God is a comedian that is playing to an audience too afraid of to laugh. This is by Voltaire. And the first thing, first of all, is to accept in 100% without any skepticism that life is an absurd. It's a big joke. It's a big giggle. And when I accept it, I don't fight it. So it means I'm not condemned to depend my happiness on tsunamis or circumstances of life, which can be surprising, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. But when it's negatively, it usually blocks our laughter, inner laughter, our external laughter, happiness, and we cannot see, yes, what is our purpose. So we become we become with no sense in our life, because life has no sense. Life is meaningless. So if life is meaningless, so my life also becomes meaningless. But this is actually doesn't need to be this way. So when I accept that life is an absurd, so I don't fight for logic. I don't want to force the logic in my life. So then I accept this, and then I can see the meaning in my life, or I can see the sense in my life despite of the nonsense, despite of the existential theater of absurdity. And I'm not conditioned to tsunamis and circumstances of life. However, I see in every difficulty and in every challenge, I see it as an opportunity. So you see, it's the paradoxical attitude. So we need to move out of the concept of planning and thinking and forcing logic to the place where we improvise. We improvise and play in this theater Gibberish cafe. And when we improvise, we have the sense in life, in spite of the nonsense. That's why here, as you see, I prefer the attitude of Viktor Frankl that says anybody who has the why to live for will be able to be with anyhow. So, I mean, when you have your meaning in life, then you can be with any absurd. The how, what Nietzsche calls it, the how is the gibberish that happens in our real life. And Albert Camus, contrary, he was talking more about if life is absurd, so just give up. Don't try to make a sense out of that. Now, the next thing is that if we want to see our sense in life, first of all, we must learn how to transcend beyond ourselves and to act out of the right hemisphere. When we transcend beyond ourselves, we are not condemned to the left hemisphere of the brain or the logic. Then we can do everything. Also, the impossible can be possible. So we want to dedicate ourselves to something which is higher than ourselves. And it brings us meaning. And it brings us meaning, and we dedicate our life to something which is higher. Maybe there is some task we need to do. Maybe there is some mission we need to complete. But sometimes those things are not logical, because if we follow our comfort zone, we don't really do the things that we need to do, but we do the things that others are dictating to us, the establishment, the society, through the years. So that's why we have to learn how to unload our linear patterns of thoughts and perceptions. And then we are not condemned by the existential nonsense, by the gibberish in the real life, yes? And we can find our sense in life. So then we fit to the absurdities in life, but we fit to it with enjoyment, yes? We enjoy that life is absurd. And then we can laugh above that, okay? Mm-hmm. So this is what I like about Viktor Frankl and about other people who did it against the odds, like Alice Herz Sommer, who, you know, she was in these concentration camps, and, you know, she had all the reasons to be unhappy, but no, she found her meaning in life. So far she could play the piano, so far she could laugh. She was always happy. Wow, it's not logical to be happy when you're in concentration camp. This is something amazing. And I remember her sentence. She said, "I know about the bad things, but I always look on the good things. I focus on the good things." Wow! And most of us, we are not in the concentration camp, but we still focus on the bad things. So it's amazing. We can learn so much from those people who are like, I like to call them the positive black swans. You know. Because they remind us that it can be other way.
Well, you know, this is really interesting. I really appreciate this perspective, because what you're saying is that so much of what we consider sense and logical really doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't have to really do with our individual or collective happiness. It doesn't really have to do with our purpose. And in part, this gives us the ability to laugh at or with life's absurdities from the space of a healed heart.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to ask you a question that somebody asked me the other day in my class. I teach a class on humor, and this guy is an MD, and he says, how do you use humor when someone has just been given a frightening medical diagnosis? So probably you come across people who say, well, my problem is too serious to joke about. How about that?
Yes, so this is again related with our perceptions about what is a disease. And we have been learned through, from our childhood, from parents, from establishment, that if somebody tells you you have a cancer, you're going to die, and you believe to it. And when you hear from the doctor that there is a very serious diagnostic, of course you cannot laugh about it, because you have already this line in the jungle in the mind that this is going to happen and that is going to happen. You must take chemotherapy, because if you don't take it, you are going to die, and blah blah blah. However, when we can unload on our subconscious mind this paradigm that cancer is a death sentence. So in this situation, when somebody is going to tell us this thing, so we know how not to believe and how not to produce this fight or flight response in our body. So first of all, we should learn how to do it. And of course, when we practice gibberish or we practice other techniques like EFT, it helps us. But also there is another thing, and you know, it's like when I met Shinichiro Terayama in Japan, and I asked him, so how you cured your cancer? And he told me, you know what? I decided that my cancer becomes my friend. So he changed from the logical perception that cancer is an enemy to cancer is my friend. And he admitted to everybody, I have a cancer. He did it exaggeratedly. I have a cancer. And when he could admit it inside himself, the power of this word cancer lost its power upon him. It was melting away. So the paradoxical attitude will be to admit and exaggerate instead of hiding it. And when you exaggerate that you have something, it loses its power upon you. And then you can behave in a more humorous way to cope with the situation. And you give less meaning or less negative interpretation to a disease like that. Okay? And then your body, of course, as a byproduct, has more vital forces. And it can be boosted up to use the wisdom of the body to heal and cure. And this, you see, here we can see how to use a paralogical or a paradoxical attitude when the situation is very, very serious. First of all, to accept and admit, but to admit with courage and to admit with no skepticism, because sometimes I know many people that say, I think positive, but it doesn't help them, this positive thinking. This is why, because they think positive, but their subconscious mind doesn't agree, doesn't obey it. They can think positive in a conscious way, but in some subconscious way they think negative, and the subconscious mind runs the show. So first of all, we have to really accept, embrace, but also in our subconscious mind. And maybe for some people, hypnosis also can help in this phase.
That's so wise. I really appreciate that, because in a way we've all met people who are trying to talk themselves into something or talk themselves out of something. That is the conscious mind pretending it's in charge. And you're saying that the subconscious mind is what's really in charge. And unless the subconscious mind gets engaged, and I have a feeling that this laughter yoga and nonsense are ways to go past the logical to the subconscious mind. So I'm curious, how did you discover the power of nonsense and gibberish, and how did your current work develop?
So what happened with me is I was living in India 12 and a half years ago, and in that time I came across the book of Dr. Madan Kataria, who is the founder of Laughter Yoga, and I read the book, and I was very, very enchanted by it, because it was something that I never did in my life. And in this book about Laughter Yoga, that was my actually first practicing in this field of laughter, I read about gibberish. It was a very short paragraph, and then I really liked it. And then I remember that as a small child, I was going outside of my house in the bush, and I was talking in incomprehensible language to myself, and I also was enjoying that. So after I was back to Israel from India and Ethiopia, and I started Laughter Yoga clubs, I felt that there is something in this gibberish that I want to develop. So I started to develop a workshop through different exercises that I read about them in the internet, and some of them I invented. And I started to run workshops in Israel that were separate than Laughter Yoga. I called it gibberish improvisation. So it took me many, many years after I ran it in Israel that I could see what is gibberish about. Gibberish is not only about gibberish, talking gibberish or doing different improv exercise. And after I read Viktor Frankl, and I read about Bruce Lipton, and I took trainings with Dr. Annette Goodhart, I could combine everything that I learned from there with the philosophy of gibberish, which is actually the philosophy of nonsense. And I could see how what happens when you unload your linear patterns of thinking, which you can do through the gibberish, how you can develop your happiness, and how you can develop your happiness not by pursuing after happiness, but by fulfilling your purpose for living. And this is something that I've got from those books. Now, actually, what happened in 2009, that I was invited by the German community of Laughter Yoga to lead laughter workshop in Wiesbaden, Germany. And the place in Wiesbaden, Germany, it's a museum of humor. It's a humor museum that was owned by a guy called Michael Berger, who was a Dadaist, a Dada artist. And that time I didn't know what is the relation between Dada, gibberish, and nonsense. But after a few years, I read more about this movement, and also my connection with Dr. Michael Tietze in Germany, who used to treat people in a mental hospital using paradoxical interventions based on Frankl and Frank Fairley. I could see this very deep connection between Dada and gibberish, because what we want actually what we want to convert, or what we want to transform in people's life, it's that they can cross their logical limits, and they can break the old paradigms, and they can break the old rules, because the old paradigms and the logic, they don't help us anymore. They harm us, but we don't have enough power to admit they harm us. So first of all, we have to practice technically things like gibberish, for example, or EFT, whatever, or hypnosis, or something that can trigger our right hemisphere. It can bring us higher than our logic, so we can really follow our purpose for living with pride. We can see what is our purpose for living, and only do this with pride and courage, and then see how the happiness is coming to us so easily, because we dedicate ourselves to something which is higher than ourselves. And when we do gibberish, when we practice it, we have more power to follow our own wishes. What happened to me actually, because before I started laughter yoga and gibberish, I was a very obedient person. I had a very low self-esteem, and I passed through many, many traumas in my childhood and in army. I never said no to authorities. I never questioned. I always was obeying. And even I felt it's not right for me, I didn't have the courage to say no. And for the gibberish practicing, I become a very different person. Less shy, I have more confidence, I'm assertive. I went to train in Europe and other countries, and I follow really my heart. I mean, if in the past I was going to medical doctors to check what is not right for me, today I know that we have more knowledge about our body than the physicians, even if they learned in 10 years in university. But see how it's absurd. We know more than them, even they have MD degree. But those people, they don't understand yet, because they are still trapped in these logical patterns. So first of all, we have to untrap ourselves, okay? So when we practice gibberish, improvisation, when we learn what is improvisation, we can take these rules of improvisation from on-stage platform and apply them in real life. So it means when something happens to us, maybe a bad thing, a negative thing, a trauma, a tsunami, we divorce, we lose our job, we are fired. So instead of acting in a logical way, and we will be still trapped in this vicious circle, we will decide paradoxically. And always I tell to my students, okay, you are fight from your job, it's a tsunami. Instead of going now and look for a new job, now you should take a vacation and release it. Now don't go with your mind and see what happens. Okay, because when you are away from your problem, then you become like a magnet. Good things are coming to you. And something that happened to me, and I usually tell about that in my trainings, that I remember one day I was sitting in front of my laptop trying to work, and I felt, wow, Alex, you cannot work anymore in front of this robot, because if you work more, you will bring the opposite results. If you try to write something or call people. So you know what I did? I went out of my house. I opened my car and I drove to the ocean, and I started to jog in the sand. I did something opposite, and while jogging, I was singing in gibberish. And I was running like that for 5 kilometers, singing in gibberish. So I couldn't think when I was singing in gibberish, and when I didn't think intentionally, then I realized so much good ideas were coming to me from somewhere. You know, when I stopped my left hemisphere of overacting, and I was in this right hemisphere activity, I got so much ideas what I want to do in the future. Okay, so one thing that nonsense helps you is to let your left hemisphere kept in rest for a while. And when it's kept in rest, there are good ideas that are coming, more creative, you become more innovative, and you can do many, many things that seemed to you in the past to be impossible. That's why I say there is no such a thing impossible. Even the word impossible itself, it implies I am possible. It is possible. Yes, I am possible. So there's nothing like that to be impossible. Yes, cancer can be cured. If one person could cure himself of cancer, so it's a positive black swan, yes? So there is much more to learn from one person than from millions of people that follow the average. Because this one person is an exception. It's enough proof to show us, wow, this is possible. And that's why I was always, through my life, because I come from a very sick childhood, and my family my parents especially, they were very sick. They always followed the medical establishment, and it killed them in the end, of course. But because of that, I was always looking for those people who were cured, who did the impossible possible, like this guy in Ethiopia, Dr. Rick Holtz, the Father Teresa, who inspired me so much that because he adopted his 40 street orphans from Ethiopia in Addis Ababa and gave them a shelter, gave them an education. He did something that it feels for me, wow, it's impossible that one person can do so much. Or Dr. Albert Schweitzer, and there are so many examples of people who dedicate their life for one purpose of living, which they found it is accurate for them to do, and they never listen to what the others are telling you and how the others make you feel skeptical about what you want to do. That's why many people, they give up their plans because they believe to others who are very skeptical and the others who are very depressed and negative about their life. So they try to convince you also to be like them. But if I don't listen to it and I transcend beyond that, then I can be in giving only to myself and only to the others, because you cannot separate the giving between yourself and to others, of course.
Yeah, I love this, because what you're saying is that you are through the logic of illogic, through the nonsense and gibberish, you're disrupting the logical patterns, which actually really not only don't they not make sense, they're actually harmful. And you talked about your obedience like everyone else, and all of a sudden something triggered this. Was there something in your life that triggered you going, wait a minute, I've been obedient, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing that that's been the wrong way? Was there an incident that sparked that?
Yes. This is what I discovered after many years of practicing gibberish and nonsense for myself, and to train it. I discovered that I was so obedient, and then I went, of course, to the other side. So this is what we want to encourage people to. Not to be obedient, and always to follow your own purpose for living, because when you do that, you don't need to pursue for happiness. As Viktor Frankl said, happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. And when you do something which is higher than yourself, then you become happy. You even don't need laughter yoga, okay? Because laughter yoga, it's a gate. Laughter yoga, it's a very good gate for those who never laughed in their life, who don't have a sense of humor, so they can laugh out of their body. But then sometimes, I know many people who do laughter yoga, that they laugh in the workshop, they feel better for 3-4 hours, but then again the vicious circle is coming, they're again trapped in the logic, they're again disturbed by the logic and by expectations and disappointments. They didn't lose it. So it's a good gate, but it's not enough, okay? So you have to go deeper, and you have to see, wait a minute, maybe I don't fulfill my purpose for living. And maybe also, some people, they cannot laugh and cannot be happy because they didn't cry in their life about things they need to cry. And you remember that Charlie Chaplin said once, in order to laugh, one should learn how to play with his pain. And people who don't know how to cry, how they can be happy and they can laugh. So this is also one thing which is very, very, very important. And it's very easy always to go for laughter and look for laughter. But, when you learn how to cry, so you are released, you pass through this cathartic mechanism, then you really can laugh. So it's another thing. And I was so amazed when I brought World Laughter Master Bela Chugirma from Ethiopia, who really started to laugh after disaster in his life. And I was so impressed to see him that he was laughing, and immediately he was also breaking into crying. And he was like crying in such indigenous way. It was like a cry from his heart about what happened to him. But then he just switched to laughter. It's so connected. And sometimes when we always focus on laughter, we forget about the crying and being in the crying position. And this is what I love about people in Africa. The people in Africa, they are so extrovert. So they can express all the spectrum of emotions. And you know what is very absurd here? Because in Africa, you have really all the reasons to be sad and depressed. But you see more people, they play music and they dance in the street because they are less trapped in logic.
They shouldn't feel as good as they do. That's wrong with them.
This is amazing. We have so much to learn from them. And even people who come from Africa and live here in the United States, they're much more happier because they can express all the spectrum of emotions. You know, I was very inspired when I took the training with Dr. Annette Goodhart. I was so inspired how laughter can be so profound. It's not a laughing matter. It's really not a laughing matter. How it's so profound. And she really gave this lesson of, wait, okay, you want to laugh, but first learn how to cry. You know, she had this amazing quote. She said, you know, in her book from 1988, Laughter Therapy, How to Laugh in Everything in Your Life That Isn't Really Funny, she had this quote, fake it till you make it, which was also the basis for laughter yoga. And then she changed it and she said, fake it till you make it, and when you make it, you get the benefits. But if you don't make it, probably you should do something else. So yeah, it was amazing. So yes, we should. Sorry.
What happens in we have a very logical based society, and so both laughing and crying being emotions, being energy that we don't have necessarily logical control over, when we allow those things to to move forward, then we have access to resource that we wouldn't have simply by following the logic, doing what everybody else says to do. What do they call it? The conventional wisdom, and it's too conventional. So I really like what you've said about the crying as well, because there are we've met people who try to cover up what's really going on with external of laughter, and you know that there's something that's not quite right about that. You know that it's not quite right. And what's not quite right about it is that it's not really going to the depths of who they are. They haven't really learned how to laugh from the depths. And what you're saying is that's because they haven't learned how to cry from the depths as well.
This is exactly because laughter comes out of pain. And when now listen for another paradoxical intervention, or paradoxical approach, when you really surrender before pain and crying, and you say, yes, I want to be depressed. I want to show to everybody how depressed I am, how I'm in pain. I'm not hiding. I allow myself to be in depression. The byproduct of it will be that the depression will be melting away. And I think the reason that so many people are on drugs and are in chronic depression is because they don't allow themselves to be depressed. When depression comes, immediately they go to the doctor, they try to hide away, and they even don't allow themselves to accept their pain, to accept themselves as they are, to accept their disorder, to accept their weaknesses and imperfection, because when I accept it fully, profoundly, with courage, with pride, by the way, I'm now citating Viktor Frankl because he's using these paradoxical interventions or paradoxical intentions. When I accept it, it's melting away. It's like Viktor Frankl said to someone who came to him and told him, you know, whenever I'm talking before others, I'm afraid to come on stage and talk because I'm afraid to stutter, to be stuttering. So Dr. Frankel told him, okay, now in next time you're going to talk before others, in front of others, imagine, play with this idea. Now I'm going to show them how much I'm stuttering. How much I'm thinking. And when he tried to do that, his stuttering melting away. He couldn't stutter anymore. And so it's first of all, we have to embrace, admit, and accept, but fully, with no skepticism. And here, you know what happens? Here you learn how to laugh upon yourself. When you accept your weakness, you laugh upon yourself. It's the most healthy face of humor. It's the self-humor. When I learn to laugh upon myself, it means that I accept my weakness and my imperfection, and I'm proud of my imperfection. How then somebody else can laugh upon me? Nobody can laugh upon me when I know how to laugh upon myself. So it's a very, very healthy attitude to learn to accept my imperfections and accept all my errors and mistakes I have, and even to show it to others. Okay? I know it sounds very not logical, because according to logic, we should cover up. We don't want to share. But when we do cover up, it remains inside. It remains inside, and then it can cause some illnesses, some problems, if it's something which is critical, you know. So if these logical ways didn't help us so far, why we should maybe try something which is paralogical, something different? And, you know, I really like, when I read about the work of Frank Fairley with the provocative therapy, and he took the work of Viktor Frankl even more radically. And what I like there is that they abolish the old paradigm that the therapist and the patient must keep a distance in between them, you know. And here the therapist is going to show his patient that the therapist is also imperfect like the patient, you know. And while doing so, he adds some humor, and then the patient can cope better with the situation, be more innovative about his problem. So and he tries to provoke him, okay? So I really like this shifting of the attitude in mental medicine from this logical attitude of the conventional psychotherapy, Freud and so on, to Viktor Frankl and Frank Fairley, which is even more radical. And here the work with gibberish and work with nonsense finds its way there, because it fits in to this transformation from being a logical person who is afraid of everything, who is afraid of being laughed at, who is afraid of what the others will say of him or how the others will be criticizing him. Here is the place where we can use the work of gibberish and nonsense to trigger this right hemisphere, so you can be more creative about what you want to achieve in life. Yes.
And what you said about the therapist actually stepping down from the pedestal, because once again, we have learned in our logical world, we have learned that we need to listen to these authorities. And so when the therapist steps away from becoming an authority, it creates the space for you to become the authority in your own life, as in the author of your own life and your own experience.
Yes, you become the author of your own life. You become the cabernet, as Frankel says, the cabernet of your life, and not the victim. This is exactly what happens. So, and also, you know, when the therapist stops to be an authority, then the person, wow, he has more power, you know, he has more power to create, to be innovative, to do something for his life, to dance the life, to play. He learns how to play, you know, and life is about playing. It's about improvisation. It's like, as I said in the beginning, life is a gibberish. I call life as a gibberish theater. It's a theater where anything goes, we think there are limitations, there are impossibles, there is planning, but anything goes. You know this Yiddish proverb, man plants and God laughs. Yes, the universe didn't learn statistics in university, and all statistics books and science books, they cannot be always applied in this chaotic world, in this universe. Universe has his own secret laws. Sometimes we cannot understand it, and one thing is to enjoy. Try to enjoy the fact that we cannot understand everything. This is one of the main reasons for our suffering. People always try to dig in their mind and try to understand the reason for everything. And it brings a lot of suffering. I'm talking, of course, from my own experience, because I was the person like that. I'm still a little bit. We're addicted to understand everything in life, why it happened. We just cannot let go. Sometimes things happen because they are bound to happen in this way. And when we accept that, we surrender to it, wow, we can move on. We can be more creative. Okay? We can do things beyond logic. So gibberish helps us to gibberish, because in gibberish language, in gibberish exercises, we can speak everything. Yes, there is this rule of anything goes, everything goes. We can say anything. There are no rules like in normal language, in a logical language. So it's like a reflection to what happens in real life. In real life, anything goes. I can plan something from the future, and most of the time my plans will come through, but sometimes there is a reminder. It's like it's a reminder from God to us to smile. Sometimes our plans are broken by other plans, God's plans, okay, universe plans. And here is the place to smile and laugh with God, not fight this big ego of God. Because when we fight, we become miserable. We suffer out of that. Only we suffer. But the good news are that everybody, from time to time, we experience challenges in life and surprises that we are not prepared to them. But, you know, when I practice this paralogical perception in life, it helps me more to be prepared if maybe something is going to destroy my plans in the future. And then I can take it more humorously. I see every challenge as another opportunity. Instead of any opportunity to be a challenge. Every challenge as an opportunity. Wow, maybe there is a lesson for me here. I'm going to do something, because there is some. It's very positive that this negative thing happened to me. Wow, maybe I can self-empower myself. I can grow up. So through the gibberish, I demolish, I unload all the paradigms that yes, we were since our childhood when we went to school. So everybody was influencing us, the governments, the parents, of course, because they couldn't do better. They couldn't do anything else. Of course, they didn't do it from a bad intention. So parents and authorities and medical doctors and society and academy, everybody influence our minds, so we obey. But now we have the freedom to go out of this obedience and be free. So it's about to be free, actually.
Wow. Alex Sternick, thank you so much for sharing. There is so much value here, particularly in how you help people recognize that life is a joyful experience when we stop trying to control things and stop trying to force the things that we cannot control. And your work with laughter, with gibberish, and with reminding people to laugh with God at our human, let's say, foolishness or shortcoming, to not try to understand everything, but simply to stand under instead of understanding, and to enjoy life as it unfolds. Brilliant healing material, and I wish you a very happy tour in the U.S., and I hope our paths cross somewhere in this world. So I want to thank you very much. I will have when I send this out, your website will be part of it, so people will know how to find you. And can you leave us with some really important gibberish?
Ive grividese sprekfus in melhantus, ive nevere Christomoro ustem par quirst, ide brekasol kanch, krahufin hanse menekolst, avele bereke fimi kifi sprekom, kruposi falk, hanjuzi berg, sampuri fraken sas. Let me just translate it and finish with a nice quote of Wittgenstein, which says, if people didn't do silly things, nothing intelligent would ever get done. So it's very important to be silly and silly, because to be silly is to be prosperous and be happy.
Thank you so much, Alex. I so appreciate our conversation. Thank you.
Right.
Best to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Sveka poste.